Hey, Heather here. Thanks for joining me to color. Today we are going to be working on this fabulous new Stampin' Bella image called Bree Loves Buttercream. Isn't she cute? She's adorable in that giant cake she's carrying. So fun. So I will put a link in the description box to the card kit and all the supplies I used. I would love for you to come shopping with me. Also, if you have a question, go ahead and leave me a comment and I will get back to you. And it'd be great if you like the video to hit the like button. That'd be awesome. So I've already stamped my image on Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. So let's color. Alright, let's start by coloring her skin, and for that we're going to use E11, E21, E00. For her cheek we're going to use R02 and E93. So I'm going to start out with my E11, and she's got a little bit of her arm showing down here underneath of her cake. So I'm going to go right next to her sleeve, and then I'm going to do a thin line down here underneath of the, till it goes underneath the cake. And let's go ahead and do a little dab right here underneath of her chin, or on her neck. And then I'm going to take E21 and I'm going to fill that in, because there's not very much arm there, so be really careful. Just the tip of your pen. And then we'll go up here and we're going to do her face. So again, I've grabbed E11, and let's do a little bit of this underneath of her hairline. Go around this side, over here to her cheek. Then I'm going to grab E21. And let's brush away from that E11 a little bit. And then E00, bring this down. I'm going to again brush down over this. And I'm going to leave the rest white in there because I'm going to go over it after I put her cheek color on. But I also want to use my E00 to go over her neck and her arm, just to blend those colors together and soften it a little bit. So for cheek I'm going to do R02. And let's go ahead and brush away from her hair just a little bit. And then E93 to soften the edge. And then she has a little bit of her ear showing over here, so I'm going to take my E21 and just give it a little dab color there. And now I'm going to take E00 and go over her ear, and then I want to go over her entire face and cover that all the way in. For her hair, let's use E37, E35, and E31. So I'm going to start out with my E37, and I'm going to do a little dab underneath of her crown here, where it's sitting on top of her head. And then I just want to add some squiggles. So I'm going to use some of these curls that are already drawn on here for me, and just go down some of those over here. And in here there's kind of a little blank space, so I'm going to swirl my color around in there just a little bit. And I'm not really even staying on the lines. I'm just kind of swirling my brush around in little circles and laying down some color. Next I'm going to add some swirls with my E35. Let's go over here. Add some squiggles. And then we're going to take E31 to finish it off. So again, I'm not really going for any certain space. I'm just swirling my brush around in a circle and adding some swirls. And then I'm just going to leave it like that. For her crown, let's use R29, YR18, YR16, Y35, and Y13. So I'm going to start with my my R29. And she's got a little bitty, right here there's a little line that makes an L shape. So I'm just going to go right over that and bring it out just a little bit. And then I'm going to grab YR18 And we're going to go right over the top of that. So I'm going to go up a little bit, go right over the Y or the R29 and bring it out here a little bit more. Next I'm going to do YR16. For this one, I'm going to make sure to go on this side too, so I can fill in this little white space over here. And then I'm going to brush away from this color. And I'm going to bring it up here into the crown a little bit. And then I'm going to go Y35. And then Y13. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and start again with my R29. Put a little bit of color down here inside these little, where it's inside of her crown. And I'm going to go ahead and do the crown over. So let's put a little swipe of that. And then next is YR18. And then we'll go with YR16. And then Y35. And then Y13 to fill it in back here. Like that. And then let's go down here. I also want to use these colors on this little bow for her dress. So I'm going to start with my R29. Let's do right here, I'm going to use these little lines that are already on the bow and color over the top of those. And then I'm going to go with YR18. And then YR16. And then Y35. And next is Y13 to fill in this little section at the end. And then we'll start over with the bows. So again, I'm going to go with R29. Let's go with this back bow. I'm going to put it right next to this, where it's touching the other one. And then we'll do the bows on here. And then also the inside of this one, I want to go on the inside just a little bit. And then let's do a little bit right in here. Okay, next we're going to go with YR18. Fill in a little bit more of the inside of that bow. And next is YR16. I'm going to fill in the inside of her bow here. I'm going to bring this around to the end. Next I'm going to go with Y35. I'm going to bring this up here. And then take my Y13 and just go over the entire thing. Okay, I'm liking that. So next let's add some color to the ribbons here. So again, I'm going to start with my R29. And let's add a little bit of color inside some of these dips. And then let's add YR18. and YR16. And curl it around. And next we're going to add Y35. And then we'll go over the whole thing with Y13. Alright, so also we are going to use these colors except for Y13, so I'll put that one away, down here on her socks. So I'm going to start with my R29, and we're going to do alternate stripes. So let's pick a stripe and start with our R29. And then let's do this side. And then we'll go with YR18. And then YR16. And then Y35 to fill it all the way in. Now let's do her dress. For that we're going to use B02, B01, B00, and B000. I'm going to start with my B02, and let's do her sleeves first. So I'm going to go right along the back of this sleeve, and she's got a little dab of sleeve showing over here. And I also want to bring this down underneath the cake in her arm, and down by this bow. And I didn't worry about the dots, I colored right over the top. So next I'm going to go with B01. And then B00. And then B000 to fill it in. And then down here for the ruffle, we're going to start with B02, and I'm going to go right next to, I'm going to do a little line right next to where the bow is touching the dress. And then I'm just going to pick some swirls, so some lines that are already down here, and put some color on top of them. And I don't even care that my pen is actually touching the swirl or that it's, you know, keeping right on the line. I'm just adding some color in, kind of like her hair. And let's do a little bit back in here. And maybe a little bit in there. And I'm going to do the same thing with my B01. So pick some swirls Add some more color in there. If there's not any swirls on there, make your own. Same thing with B00. I'm just filling in some more of my space. And I'm going to finish it off with my B00. And now I'm just going to kind of go over the entire blue section and smush it all together. So I'm just swiping back and forth, making sure I fill in the rest of my white space. And we also want to use these colors down here on our socks, so I'm going to grab B02. And we're going to just do a little line on each of her socks. Like that. And I also want to use this color on her shoe, so as long as there's just a little bit of shoe, we'll go ahead and fill that in. Might as well just do them all at once. Next I'm going to go with B01. And I'm just kind of dotting my pen down on top of the last color because there's not really that much space on those little legs. They're pretty dinky. And this is B00. And then B00 to go all the way across. That will leave us with the frosting on this top cake. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to take my B02, and let's go on this side of the frosting, and then around on the bottom of each of these little dips. And then we'll go B01. B00. And then B000 to fill it in. For the cakes, let's use E49, E47, E44, and E43. I'm going to start with my E49. And let's start up here at the blue cake. So I'm going to do a little dab of my E49 right around next to the frosting. Trying not to get too much, just a little bit. And then we want to do this side. Oh, I forgot to color that center frosting in, so we'll go back and fix that here in a minute. And we'll go down here and do the next one. I'm going to brush that up here. And then we'll do a little bit underneath of some of these frostings. And we'll get down to the next one. And finally this last one. And then let's brush a little bit of this darker out here. Next we're going to grab E47. Let's work a little bit of this color out here. And we're going to add a little bit more up here underneath the frosting. And just work our way back up to the top cake. Next we'll do E44. And then we're going to fill it in the rest of the way with our E43. Now let's work on the frosting for our cake. So for this second one, we're going to use R27, R24, and R22. For this one, we're going to use BG72, BG70, and for this one, we're going to use YR18, YR16, and Y35. And I forgot to color the frosting for this top one, so I'm going to use my B02 to just color this little section in, like that. And then we'll move on over here to this next cake. So we're going to use R27, R24, and R22. I'm going to use my R27 first and go down the back side of my cake, and then just go along each one of these little, the bottom of each of the frosting. And I'm also going to use this color to fill in the center frosting. Then I'm going to take R24 next. And then R22. For the next section, we're going to use B72 and B70. So I'm going to start with my BG72, and I'm going to go ahead and fill in the center of the frosting. And then I'm just going to use this color to go along the edge of the bottom of all the frosting. And I didn't, it's not going to really matter. I probably got a little bit on the brown, but you're not going to know once you color it in because it's so dark there at the top. Then I'm going to take my BG70 and tap it to my 72 and go right along the edge of the BG72 color. And when I run out, I'm just going to fill in this top. For the bottom one, we're going to use YR18, YR16, and Y35. I'm going to fill in the center of my cake with my YR18. And then again, I'm going to use this color to go right along the edge of the bottom. And then next is YR16. And then Y35. that leaves us with the plate. For that, we're going to use C7, C5, and C3. I'm going to start with my C7, and I'm going to go right next to the edge of my cake, kind of brush it away on the side just a little bit further out. And then I'm going to soften it with C5. And then I'm going to fill in the rest of the plate with C3. So there is our beautiful Bree Loves Buttercream all colored up. Isn't she adorable? I love her. And again, here's the finished card. So on my card, I put some Stickle Stardust on all this frosting. And I kind of swirled around down here in the ruffles of her dress and on the blue stripes of her socks. And I also used my Sharpie white paint pen to put some white dots on her dress. So I just covered up the little dots that were already there. And I used my Spica glitter pen up here in clear on her hair. And then I also, she's all cut out, so she's popped up off of the back here. But I think I left enough, I gave you a piece big enough that I used the largest small classic Spellbinders die to cut out this circle right here. It would be really cute if you cut this girl out as the circle and then just cut out this cake part. So if you had the die, you could do that so that her cake and the top of her head here and the crown all pop up off this circle. I think would be really super cute. I just couldn't do that for your kit, so I gave you a separate white piece underneath, and then I cut her out so you could pop her up if you didn't have the die. So I hope you had fun coloring with me today. If you have a question, make sure to leave me a comment and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.